Yes, I know. I have no beard. I look horrible without a beard. I'm growing the beard back. I'd like to say I lost a bet, but that would imply I have honor. Actually, I shaved it for the sake of a costume. I won the $25 prize, which just means I'm kind of a whore. This episode's kind of all about change, and it's a continuation of our computer theme. This is POS TNG, Emergence. We begin on the holodeck, where Data is doing a soliloquy from The Tempest.
Ah, good old Prospero. The Tempest is an interesting play. One of Shakespeare's few original plots. Let's see where they go with this. This could be fun.
This is a POS, not an SOS. It won't be that much fun.
Hi, Captain.
Yeah, you and me both, Picard. Not the biggest Shakespeare fan, I'll be honest.
Data, I can barely see you.
But, sir, the darkness is appropriate for such a ritual.
Yes, but Data, this is a play. The audience has to see you.
Yaha! You see, Benioff and Weiss? Even Picard doesn't buy your lame excuses. Adjust your holodeck, my ass.
And Picard talks about The Tempest and about how it's about moving into a new era. For Prospero, for Shakespeare himself. Although I guess in a meta sense, because this was right at the end of Season 7, they knew they were wrapping up the show and moving into the movie era, while DS9 and the upcoming new show Voyager were going to be the new face of Trek. For the first time, no Star Trek was going to be featuring the Enterprise at all. So in a meta sense, yeah, even Star Trek was entering into a new era.
Yes, but there's a certain expectancy, too, hopefulness about the future.
Well, and connecting with The Tempest, as Picard says, this is from the final act of the play. This is Prospero about to give up his magic after accomplishing a final creative act.
As well as the whole final creative act, as you'll see. And just when it's starting to get interesting...
Well, what is going on?
It appears to be a steam locomotive,
A train.
if I am not mistaken.
Computer end program. Computer end program.
Picard has a minor injury after all this, which demonstrates that the safeties are offline, also known as a day that ends with Y.
You know, that's hardly even worth putting in the Star Trek drinking game. Drink when the safeties are off. That's like saying drink when it's an odd-numbered episode.
There appears to have been a malfunction in the holodeck's database retrieval program.
Sirius Black, holodeck technician.
About the only useful thing I've been able to do.
I never realized that you were interested in trains. Are you aware that at its peak, the Orient Express carried more than 10,000 people a year?
I met the new head of Stellar Sciences last night. Did you know that it is now possible to predict the configuration of a star system which won't be formed for another 2 million years?
It isn't really the train itself that I'm interested in.
Don't be ridiculous. You love trains.
And the Enterprise is doing some mundane surveys. I gotta say, Warp's looking pretty hot right here. And suddenly the Enterprise flies off on its own. And then it suddenly just shuts down some distance away. It turns out it was a good thing the ship did that because it basically ran away from a disaster. Some sort of invisible menace that was about to build up and destroy them in less than 2 seconds.
If the Enterprise hadn't jumped into warp when it did, we would have been blown to pieces.
Okay, let's go back and we'll rewind this, check that out scene again, and...
I don't get it, Data. What would cause the engines to suddenly jump into warp?
Is it just me, or is this episode doing a lot of restating what's already happened?
Yeah, it's kind of a thin premise with no subplot. They just kind of pad it out. One of the many flaws in what could be an intriguing episode. Geordi and Data are going through the Jeffries tubes trying to find out what's wrong, and they find a bunch of silly straws glued together in a weird shape that are connecting all the systems that normally shouldn't be connected. And the holodeck where Picard and Data were is the hub of all these connections, and so they go there to find out what's going on. It's running Crusher's Orient Express program, but with characters from lots of different programs all mixed in there together.
Oh, well, this could be interesting. We could have, like, Moriarty and Sam Spade and all sorts of different...
Rick Berman is in charge of the show at this point, Kim. It won't be interesting. No. Guarantee you these will just be a bunch of generic characters that aren't anything.
Tickets, please. You know, I never even been away from home. Now I'm going all the way to Vertiform City.
Ah, you see, that guy must be from Wesley's Deliverance program.
So Data plans to go in and try to fix what's going on and blank out all these new circuits, but Conductor Santa gets irritated at that.
I don't think you folks belong on this train.
The engineer comes out to defend our heroes, and Al Capone shows up to shoot him. And at the same time the engineer is killed, navigation is overloaded.
I believe we've changed direction.
Now we're on the right track.
Just trying to make off with my brick.
We can't afford to lose it. What in God's holy name are you blathering about?
Yeah, you and me both, Riker.
Now, are you people going to leave? Or do we have to throw you off the train?
According to my tricorder, the holodeck safeties have been disengaged. His weapon could be lethal.
Safeties disengaged? Oh, preposterous.
But the systems that are being linked together by all the silly straws are getting more functional as they go along. Learning how to work together, if you will.
You're learning and adapting!
Data realizes that the ship is actually starting to grow an intelligence of its very own. Possibly a result of the weird anomaly they just went through, but I have a theory that this is actually a result of what the Binars did in the last episode, which was titled
1001010101001.
You see, they did something unique to the Enterprise's computer that allowed it to create sentient beings on the holodeck. And I suspect that's why Moriarty came to be on the Enterprise computer, because of this change, and that's why this is happening too, is they did something that sort of put in their own organic essence into the function of the computer or something. Granted, that's just my own personal headcanon, but I think it makes sense and explains why it seems to always happen with the Enterprise. You can even argue that the Binars at some time helped other Federation places fix their computers to do the same thing, which would eventually lead to sentient holograms like Vic Fontaine and the Doctor and others.
He knows he's a hologram? Felix designed him that way.
For all we know, Felix was a Binar. Basically, we get a long scene explaining that the Enterprise's computer is growing sentient and becoming alive. At least Short Circuit just used lightning to do that.
It sees with its sensors and talks with its communication systems.
In a sense, it almost reproduces with the replicators.
No, reproduction would be like making little shuttles. Using the replicators is more like pooping.
Which is Enterprise in reverse.
So, the waste is broken down into little molecules. And then they get transformed into any number of things we can use on the ship. Cargo containers, insulation, boots.
If that is so, what does the ship want? Where is it taking us?
Wow. You know, Worf has come a long way from...
Shall we go?
Swimming is too much like bathing.
These wild cards. It's difficult to know what is exactly in my hand.
One Riker, one bridge.
Talk about an episode that's going to feature our growth. Yeah. Speaking of showing a lot of growth, Troy actually has some good insight and is being helpful.
I could interact with the characters and maybe find some clues to help us understand what's happening.
Holy crap, we might need to empty that liquor bottle after all!
Urge to kill rising.
And back on the Orient Express program, the characters are doing all sorts of weird imagery, but it's all the same thing. They're building something, creating something, crafting something. Which is really one of the shortcomings of this episode is, you would think there'd be this weird, long, multi-level symbolic thing, but it's just the same thing over and over again. The ship is building something.
What exactly are you making?
What do you think we're making? A puzzle.
Yeah, that's been established.
No, I meant the picture. What is it?
Well, I don't know.
They reach Keystone City, and Al Capone gets off the train with the brick he stole.
We should follow that man. That brick might be an important clue.
Data's second attempt to try to break up all these circuits is interrupted by a taxi cab.
Sometimes I think I'm the only cab on the road.
For the record, Kim actually is a train fan.
What? I like Cab. I like a couple others.
She also likes Nickelback.
Yes, I like Nickelback. And you can all shut up about it!
After Capone puts his brick in the hole in the wall, surprisingly literal, a cargo bay depressurizes suddenly. And inside that cargo bay is another silly straw node. Data has managed to stop the cab and is starting to attack the nodes like he was planning to from the very beginning.
I am ready to depolarize the power grid.
I'm reading massive power fluctuations. The ship is losing its structural integrity.
At Geordi's behest, he stops and everything calms down.
The ship was protecting itself again, stopping us from interfering.
Obvious!
I'm betting that all this has something to do with that object that's forming in the cargo bay.
Engineer, obvious! Yet again, a long description of what's already been happening for the audience, because at this point the producers of Star Trek do not respect their fans. This has not changed.
I knew you wouldn't want to have to adjust to something new.
Troy and the crew go back, but this time they just have tickets made. Now they're going to get along with the characters. You know, like they should have from the beginning. So Worf's contribution is to literally go into the cabin and literally shovel coal to power the Enterprise. I swear, I think this whole episode was built on a dare. Can we have a story point where Worf has to shovel coal into the Enterprise's engine to make it work?
You load 16 tons, what do you get? Another day older and deeper in debt. St. Peter, don't you call me, 'cause I can't go. I owe my soul to the company store.
I don't know if this counts as making it work, but there it is. So, the Enterprise arrives at a star, and the Enterprise starts sucking in vertiform particles, basically star stuff, because it's what it needs to build this thing. But it sucks out all that there is, and they can't get any more. And now this thing has been started, and it's too young to deliver it, but it needs to get nourishment. And oh my god, Breaking Dawn did this plot.
Tastes good.
Welcome to the creepy side, honey.
I'm gonna hope this baby is more like my niece and less like the hideous CGI Twilight baby. Please God.
It finds another star to go to, but now it's using all power to get there as soon as it can, and it's using life support. It'll get there in about 12 hours, and life support will run out in 2. Do the math. Data convinces the characters to let him take control, and they find an artificial way they can make vertiform particles that are within 2 hours. And they find more particles, and it is very exciting. So exciting that Offscreen Kim was literally sleeping through this part of the episode.
But what do you know? We're here!
New vertiform city.
I wanted to do that all my life!
And so the thing comes to life. Baha, it is a baby. And it normalizes and flies away, and everything's happy and back to normal. Because apparently the Enterprise just wanted to make a life form, and then its independent sentient brain just dies, and the ship goes back to being a lifeless husk.
The nodes are deactivating all over the ship. All our systems are beginning to function normally again.
Then the purpose of the ship's intelligence was simply to bring this life form into being.
There are some species whose sole purpose is to reproduce. Once they finally procreate, they die.
And this is considered the happy ending.
Because as we all know, every parent's job ends when the kid is expelled from the womb.
Truly, a miracle has occurred. Data and Picard discuss the implications, which will come to nothing because we'll never even hear of this thing again. This has been a large nothing of an episode.
Which is a shame, it had so much potential.
Again, the concept is intriguing. The Enterprise becomes alive and decides to go about doing something of its own instead of just following the orders of the ship. But sadly, the animated series did this better with one of its dumber episodes, where the ship became alive and started playing practical jokes. At least there it had a personality, as annoying as it was.
Again, it's ironic that they bring in the Tempest at the beginning, a play not only about giving up magic and creativity, but also about being a parent and knowing when to let your child go on their own and make their own choices, but they didn't really do anything with it. Honestly, it's sadly fitting that this was the crew that would go on to do Voyager. Because, much like in this episode, they had great potential, but they squandered it. They learned.
Play it safe.
So as usual, decide for yourselves. But as for me, I'm calling Emergence POS TNG.
New York snow this time of year. There's nothing more beautiful to me except for you. Making my way uptown and down, seeing familiar places, faces in my pile of coffee grounds. The days are better, the nights are still so long. Sometimes I think I'm the only cab on the road. Sometimes I think I'm the only cab on the road.
Oh God, as I look at myself, I look like Wings Hauser in the twilight years of his life. I'm like the worst He-Man character ever. Dumpor.
You look like a pumpkin past its sell-by date.
I look like Mitch McConnell crossed with Woody Allen.
You look like the world's saddest tomato.
I look like all four Golden Girls combined into one horrible Voltron. I look like a Jewish turtle.